Welcome to the Chat Box, Vail, everybody, your local mental health podcast with two of the people that need it the most. I'm Liz Farron, Jen Saito, and we have a very special guest today, Chloe Sorenson from Vail Health. Now, Chloe has a big job over at Vail Health, but let me get through the beginning first. We come to you from High Five Access Media, and we're really happy to be home here, and it's just been a really wonderful ride. This is our 15th episode just here. So that's big. You're excited, I can see. And we're really happy to have you here, Chloe. And you do a lot for mental health over at Vail Health, and you have a big job over there. So what we want to do is jump into it. You told me earlier that you have two programs that are geared towards mental health here in the community. Thank you for that. And let us know a little bit about you, too. When did you join? How long have you been here? Getting to know you.
Yeah, definitely. So my name's Chloe Sorenson. I am the clinical research supervisor for Vail Health Behavioral Health.
Wow.
So Vail Health Behavioral Health is part of the larger Vail Health umbrella, and that's the department that oversees all of our mental health initiatives in the Valley.
Okay.
I specifically oversee our research team. So we have a couple of ongoing clinical trials, and we have a team of research staff members. Currently, we have two different research studies for depression specifically. The first one is called the CHILLED study, which stands for cold and heat investigation to lower levels of depression, and that's about sauna and cold plunge.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then the other one is called OPTIMIZE, and that study is looking at the combination of psilocybin, like the psychedelic mushroom, with a non-invasive form of vagus nerve stimulation.
Okay, I'd like to know a little bit more about each one. I actually auditioned for the psilocybin one because I've had depression my life, but I didn't qualify. So what qualifies somebody for a program such as that?
Yeah, totally. So our psilocybin study is regulated by the FDA.
Okay.
Because of that, we have very specific criteria that we're required for participants to meet. As I'm sure you know, there's a pretty intensive screening process. When people first apply to the study, they'll fill out an application online with some basic information. If they seem eligible, a member of my team will give them a call and do kind of like a phone interview.
Yeah.
Then we'll have them kind of consent into the study and learn a little bit more about it and decide if it's the right time for them to participate. And if they're still interested, then they come in for actually a very rigorous 3-hour screening visit.
What do you do during that?
Yeah, so
tie us down to a chair.
So that includes a lot of questions. Because it's a behavioral health study, we're going to be asking a lot of questions about your psychiatric history, your family psychiatric history, your current depressive symptoms, since it is a study for depression. We also just look at your medical history, any medications that you're currently taking, your previous experience with psychedelic substances.
Nice.
So we're really trying to get a really thorough assessment to make sure that we're only enrolling people who, one, meet the criteria that we're required to meet for the FDA, but also that it's going to be safe for them to participate.
Sure. And do you ever find anybody just looking to find some mushrooms that try and get into it?
People definitely do want to do mushrooms, but I would say that this is one of the harder ways to do mushrooms around here.
Yeah, well, it's also just like, isn't it microdosing?
No.
No.
So it's actually a very large dose. It's what we call in the research a hero dose.
Superhero!
So it is definitely...
is it like ayahuasca?
It is not. So that's a different substance. So psilocybin is typically found in mushrooms, but we actually use a synthetic form of the drug that's manufactured by a company called the Usona Institute. Because we're an FDA-regulated study, we have really strict controls about what kind of product we're giving to people. So it's definitely different from what you might find like at a concert or on the street.
On the street. Oh, look at that.
What is your hypothesis? Is that it's that a large dose of psilocybin does cure, in fact, depression completely, or is it just
so there's been some really compelling evidence in recent years. There's been some pretty large clinical trials looking at the efficacy of psychedelics for the treatment of depression. And Dr. Raison, who's actually our programs director, he's done studies in the past showing that psilocybin can have a really powerful antidepressant effect. So this study is actually not looking at just psilocybin. We're looking to see if we can enhance the effect of psilocybin by combining it with this new form of vagus nerve stimulation.
Very cool. That's awesome.
So I take it you need to take the time, whether you have a job or family responsibilities, you have to kind of exit the building for a day or two or something? How does that work?
Yeah, so the dosing day itself, that's the day that the participant actually takes the psilocybin. That is an 8-hour day at minimum. We're
Wow, so it's a
required to
full-time
monitor people
thing.
For,
Okay.
for that period of time. The FDA doesn't allow us to discharge people any earlier than that. So they have to take that full day off,
Right.
and then there's a number of other study visits that they do come in for. We take the preparation really seriously because
sure.
it can be a really intense experience. And so every participant in the study is paired with 2 trained facilitators. And so those facilitators are typically therapists or psychiatrists who have been trained in this kind of work.
I like it.
And they guide that person through their psychedelic journey.
Now, is the journey singular or in a group?
Singular. So
Oh.
2 facilitators and 1 participant. So the participant isn't grouped with any other
Okay.
participants.
And I guess it works better that way because you're in an individual environment and you're in your own head and you don't have to focus on the other energy of the other people.
Yeah, so a big part of the preparation is having the facilitators get to know the participant and kind of their history and what brings them to the study, some of the factors contributing to their depression, and also their expectations around the experience, because that can really affect how they show up on the day of dosing.
Okay.
Now, when you say guided, is it like, hypnotism where it's like, they walk you through scenarios and try to find that like inner child? And
It's definitely not guided in that
Okay.
sense. We use what is called an inner directed approach.
Okay.
And so essentially we're really looking to the participant to guide their own experience, and then the
Interesting.
facilitators are there to support them through anything that comes up.
Gotcha.
So it's not entirely uncommon for people to have challenging experiences, right? Like if they've had trauma in the past, sometimes those experiences will reemerge during their experience. And so it is really important to have that therapeutic support to make sure that they feel safe and that they feel grounded in that space.
That's amazing.
That really is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, we've come so far from sticking little probes on people's heads and flipping a switch. You know what I mean? No, seriously, there's always been such a stigma attached to it. And especially long ago, I mean, they would just throw you in a insane asylum. Nobody understood. There's just a couple of wires that are a little bit differently crossed than most. And, well, many. Because a lot of people struggle with, well, depression, which leads to so many other health issues. So I'm just really glad you're there. Is there anything specific you'd like to let us know more about that research before we jump on to the next exciting?
Yeah, so I guess if people are interested in getting involved, they can look at our website. It's the Vail Health Behavioral Health website, has a page for research.
Okay.
We are recruiting adults only, so ages 18 to 70, and we're looking for adults with moderate or greater severity depressive symptoms. And like we were saying, there's a lot of other criteria that they have to meet, but I won't get too into that because it would take all day.
Yes, it would. It also took all day just to sign up for it. No, I'm just kidding. And look, if it takes you somewhere special and if it does something for you, that's what the benefit is. That's what we're all here for. We want to make this an opening, just for somebody that's watching that might have depression. Here's a good question for you, because some people, if it's new because of the surrounding things that are happening, there's a lot of new depression and new found anxiety within people. Could you possibly throw down a couple of these signs and symptoms of depression? I mean, I could because I've had it, but you're more of a professional.
Yeah.
So if you could give us some of the signs, maybe if you're watching and you've been sleeping a lot or something and you just don't care about getting up and brushing your teeth, things like that. That's just one little sign,
Totally.
but can you reel
Yeah.
off that for us?
So something we know about depression is that it presents really differently for different people.
Oh, it does.
The classic symptoms that most people think of are just feeling sad, right, and losing interest in their usual activities. So let's say you used to really enjoy going outside and riding your mountain bike or skiing, and you just don't have the desire to do that anymore, and you don't feel like you get as much pleasure from that. That's a hallmark sign of depression, in addition to the low mood. Also the things that you mentioned, like low energy, having trouble sleeping too much, having a low appetite or an increased appetite. There's a lot of different things that kind of come along with depression. And so we're not necessarily looking for a specific subset
That's
of
good.
symptoms.
So nobody has to fall into a certain category. I mean, there's some people that just stop self-care.
Yeah.
And just like, it's just, my goodness, there's so many things that can trigger depression or create depression. And depression can be brand new to somebody who's lost somebody in their life that they didn't expect, whatever the deal is, or a pet. I mean, I've been depressed about a pet or two, but it's just amazing how vast depression really is.
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing I'll say is that, like you said, not everybody's going to qualify for the study, and that doesn't mean that your symptoms aren't valid or that you're not experiencing clinically significant depression. There's a million different reasons that we end up excluding people, whether it's like something on their lab results or a heart condition, or like it could have nothing to do with their mental health.
Well, that time in 1985 she listed, no bueno. Actually, you know, in a way, I made it think, well, maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was, kind of like that. But I understand there's so many different levels and things that we have to do to qualify, and I just think that's wonderful. Would you take the study, Jen?
I might. Yeah, I think that would be very interesting. You know, I definitely, it's definitely something that's crossed my mind. And that's, you know, I do feel like, you know, there's all these new studies. There's ketamine studies for depression now. There's mushroom studies for depression.
The ketamine's weird for me because it's like a horse tranquilizer. So why are we doing it? Why? Well, I can understand mushrooms. Yeah. It's, you know.
Well, and that's the thing, you know, like I've been offered antidepressants before and I didn't want to take them. I didn't feel safe taking them. So I love that we're exploring these new methods to, that are more natural. I think psilocybin feels like the more natural way to solve depression. And I don't know anything about ketamine, but like, will your study also like have some kind of comparative element to say like this is a better way to solve depression, or?
We're not currently comparing to ketamine or to other antidepressants, but I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of people find that traditional antidepressants and traditional pharmaceuticals aren't a good fit for them, whether that's because they don't see a benefit or they do see a benefit, but they have side effects, right?
Right, exactly.
And so one of the compelling things about psilocybin as an antidepressant compound is that they've found that a single dose can have really long-lasting effects. And so it reduces the need to take a pill every day. For some people. And that being said, we really don't know that much right now about who this is a good fit for. And so that's another aim of our study is to understand the factors that contribute to somebody having a positive experience with this type of drug versus maybe a more challenging or difficult experience.
But I mean, this is how you learn. This is what makes us grow and develop into better healed individuals is studies such as this. So I just think it's very important. And I just, you know, if people kind of like clutch their pearls at the idea, well, it might not be for you, or it probably is for you and you just haven't really done enough research. And that's where your research team comes in. So if you go through Vail Health, you can look and see all of the research and the studies that have been done before they would ever just take the community into their walls and be like, here, let's try this.
Yeah, and I will say that, like, if somebody thinks they're interested but isn't quite sure, it's always good to submit an application because then my team will always give them a call, talk them through the process, and we, as I'm sure you know, do a very lengthy consent process where we go through the consent form, we talk about everything that's involved, and then once someone is enrolled in the study, they actually do two-hour preparation sessions prior to dosing with their facilitator team just to talk about what to expect from psilocybin and what their experience might look like.
That's so interesting.
Do you suspect that there are other ailments that this could be solving, like despite depression or in addition to depression?
Definitely. There's been a ton of research all around the country looking at psilocybin as a novel therapeutic. So we focus specifically on depression, but excuse me, towards the end of this year, we're actually going to be launching a new study looking at psilocybin and its effects on aging and longevity.
Oh, cool. Okay, sign me up.
You have to be at least 60. You look a little bit younger than 60.
Darn it.
Hey, I can... Now you... Pick me! Oh, wait, I've already been rejected. It's okay, I got rejected at a blood bank once because I didn't weigh enough. I'm like, God, I can't do anything. So before we get into your other study, let us know a little bit about yourself. How did you get involved in this type of arena with regards to health?
Totally. Yeah, I've always been really interested in mental health ever since I was a teenager.
Wow, that's interesting. Teenagers don't usually care.
When I was in college, I chose to study psychology, and that's kind of the path that I was on. And
Nice.
then after undergrad, I ended up working at Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital for a few years.
Ooh, I know what General Hospital is. That's a soap opera. That's how smart I am. No, but that's amazing and very impressive. So it's not like we're talking to just a run-of-the-mill person here. You actually have your studies and your degrees and everything under your belt, so you come very prepared for this.
I try to be, yeah.
Yeah.
I was working over in Boston, and then I met Dr. Charles Raison, who's our programs director, through that work. And then he was invited to come to Vail Health and launch this program, and he asked me if I wanted to come out here. So that was about 3 years ago.
What an offer just to change your life and come to one of the most beautiful places.
Totally.
Right? And do something that you love. So it's been 3 years. And I was going to say, are you happy? But you seem very happy.
Yeah. No, it's a great job. It's a great community. It's definitely very different, but I'm loving it.
Were you surrounded by, and you don't have to answer this if not, if you don't want to, but when you were younger and you had this interest in mental health and things like that, did you see it around you? And is that what gave you the instinct to want to understand it better?
Definitely. I think mental health challenges have become a lot more common in recent years. And so it's something I noticed among my peers, and it was always something I was really passionate about changing.
You are empathic too then, because not everybody recognizes the signs, because people are like, well, they were just here, and then, things happen and we don't know why. And, so it's really good to understand the people that you're close to and reach out on a daily basis. And if you ever feel like you see certain signs, and whether the person agrees with you or not, you've got to be able to, what is a good way to approach somebody? I have a friend that I would love to get into any kind of program. How do you have any good ideas on how to approach somebody with something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think people a lot of the times are afraid to ask.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm like choking on something.
Do you need more water?
Yeah, I'm okay.
We're pretty lax here.
Cool.
We choke. We've thrown up before.
I'll try not to do that.
No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, I think just it doesn't hurt to ask. I think people are sometimes afraid to broach the subject.
I like that.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Right, and sometimes some people do need a kick in the booty, and that's why we're here, to show that we care and to give people an opening and an opportunity to really just help themselves and take care of their mental health and well-being.
Have you found a lot of participants for this study so far that have actually gone through the whole thing? Or is it just the one session?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
it's about one session and then 8 weeks of follow-up.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool.
Yeah, and we've had about 20 people go through the dosing experience so far.
Awesome. Okay.
These are amazing programs, and we've only heard about just one through Vail Health, and I'm really excited to hear about the other one. This is regards to depression or things and symptoms that come along with it, because we do end up with ailments and issues if we don't combat it or at least take some sort of control. So Chloe Sorenson, I'm so happy to have you here from Vail Health. What is your next big study that you're putting out there for the community?
Do you want to hear about the new one, or you want to hear about our other trial that we have going right now?
Well, now I want to hear about both.
Okay. I'll start with the one that we have going on right now, because that's one that people
That's
can
the trial that
actively
people can
enroll
check
in.
out.
Yeah.
Okay.
That one's called the Chilled Study. And it's looking at sauna and cold plunge as a treatment for
Sounds like a hot flash.
Yeah.
This has come up so much in conversation recently, and mostly because we keep hearing about, like the cold plunge is so good for you, but that there hasn't been many studies on women in cold plunging. So are you doing both men and women in the study?
Yeah, men and women, all ages, all ethnicities. Well, not all ages, it's 18 to 65, but a large range of ages. And what we're looking at is whether sauna alone is more effective than sauna plus cold plunge. There's been some previous studies that have shown sauna as an antidepressant treatment for depression. That seems obvious. But there's been previous studies looking at this, and nobody has ever looked at combining the cold plunge in there as well.
So what would you do? Jump out of the sauna and into the cold plunge?
Pretty much.
And then would you go back to the sauna?
No, so we actually use a very unique sauna protocol. It's not what you would typically see at like a spa or a gym where it's just like a wooden box that you sit in. Really
That's why I never get in them. Wooden boxes, not for me.
We actually use an infrared sauna dome. It's called the Clear Light
I'm
Sauna.
gonna bring up infrared, so I'm glad you just did.
So it's a little different because when you first get in, it's not hot at all.
Right.
But it slowly elevates your core temperature over time. And what we're looking for in this study is for people to reach a core temperature of 38.5 degrees Celsius, which is around 101.3 Fahrenheit.
So when you feel like you have a fever, you're there.
Sitting in a dome? Like, are you in a tight space
Pretty
while this is
much.
happening? This
You're
sounds
you lie on a bed and there's these domes that come over your body and your head is outside the whole time. Okay. So that helps it feel a lot less claustrophobic.
Wow.
That's what I was concerned
because your
about.
head is sticking out and also because your head isn't in the heat, it's a lot more tolerable.
Yeah, because usually if you're hot in the face or the head, especially women, because
I get
menopause.
very hot in the
Oh,
face
please, well, that's
easily,
because you're
yes.
pre. But still, when I was younger, my favorite feeling in the world when we used to go to my grandparents would be to go from the cold swimming pool into the hot tub. Mm-hmm. But not the other way around. So I'm so curious. Why would you go from warmth and comfort and just go freeze yourself to death?
Usually by the end of this sauna protocol, people are so hot that they're like really excited about the cold plunge. But in this study, actually, so because we're comparing sauna alone versus sauna plus cold plunge, half of the participants don't do the cold plunge. So everybody does the sauna. But then only half of them proceed to the cold plunge part.
So how are you measuring or monitoring the mental health effect if you're being hot and then jumping into a cold pool, and then how are you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not just the one visit where they come in for treatment. We do some assessments before and then we do some assessments afterwards. So they come in 1 week after and 2 weeks after their treatment, and we use a clinical interview that was designed to measure depressive severity at each time point.
Gotcha.
So we look at how their depressive symptoms are changing over time, and then they also fill out a bunch of surveys about well-being, anxiety, stress, things like that. And then we are actually also looking at things in their blood. So we draw blood before and after the treatment, and that blood is being analyzed by the Stedman Philippon Research Institute over in Vail, and they're looking at a whole host of different biomarkers.
I love that because I feel like so often we do research in silos, and so like you might be testing for mental health stuff, but not necessarily like the medical effects and vice versa.
That's amazing.
So one of the ideas behind the treatment is they think that what happens is that the sauna kind of creates this spike of inflammation in the body in the short term that leads to a longer term decrease in systemic inflammation. And the greater the decrease in inflammation, typically the greater the decrease in depression.
This sounds but just like something you could do for pain, like physical pain.
Yeah, inflammation is related to all sorts of things. And I mean, when I first got into this field, I was really unfamiliar with that idea, but there's actually a ton of research associating inflammation with depression.
That's insane. I would have never ever related the two. I always think inflammation causes pain. Bad things cause depression. You know what I mean, though. You know, just like life in general and stuff. These are amazing. And are you excited about both studies equally?
They're both really interesting. They're super different. The chilled study is a lot quicker. People come in, they do that same screening process, but then there's just 3 visits. It's the treatment visit, the 1 week follow-up, and the 2 week follow-up. Whereas in the optimized study, we're really working with people over the span of 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, and you need time to do this. Yeah. But if you're really looking for relief, or if you've tried so many other things, and I have to admit, you know, like taking antidepressants is not something you want to do for your whole life. I always laugh. You're watching a television thing and it's like, is your antidepressant not working? Add this to it. It's like, well, if it's not working, then don't take it.
Yeah, and something I'll say about the optimized trial. So in the chilled study, you're allowed to enroll in the study if you're on an antidepressant. But in the optimized study, we actually taper people off of their antidepressants because there's some evidence showing that it might interfere with the effect of psilocybin. And so if people are if they're on an antidepressant, that is not helping them, if it is helping them, we don't want to take them off of it.
Right. Yeah.
If it's not helping them, and they choose to enroll in the study and they're eligible, they'll actually go through a like supervised medication taper with one of our psychiatrists to help them get off that medication safely before participating in the study.
I just found out why I wasn't qualified, because my antidepressant works for me.
And that's a great thing.
Oh, yes, yippee. I love the chemicals. They're so fun.
We never want to mess with a good thing, right? And
well, it's been working. I mean, it's weird. God forbid I forget one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can just feel the chemicals all moving around there. It's like, wow, how crazy is the brain? And it's just so insane. Insane in the membrane. All right. Now, you said you have a new study coming?
Yes, and
I'm
I
excited.
can't say too much about it just because we haven't finalized the protocol yet, but we are going to be launching a new study later this year looking at psilocybin and longevity.
Ooh.
Is that more microdosing?
Nope, it's actually the same dose. In that study, there will actually be the potential to take multiple doses. So people will be randomized into different groups, and depending on which group they're in, they'll have a different number of psilocybin experiences throughout the study. And that is much longer of a duration because we follow them for a full year.
Wow. And so, not to feel like I'm backtracking here, but you did mention that one good sitting with these does a lot. So what's the difference between the one good sitting and then somebody that wants to do repetitive sittings?
Yeah, so this new study actually isn't for depression. It's looking at primarily different blood biomarkers. So we're interested in how it changes your kind of like physiological chemistry.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Have you yourself done any of the trials, participated as a participant?
I can't, unfortunately, because I'm running them. So I would have to run it on myself, and that wouldn't really work.
Gotcha.
You will feel better.
It's been great to get to know the participants. I've worked very closely with a number of people in the community who have come through the studies, and it's honestly a really meaningful experience for me and my team to watch people go through these experiences.
Oh, I want to do it
in a different way.
I just got. Maybe I'll try the plunge.
Yeah, and so actually the other thing I'll say about the chilled study is we recently opened up a new part of the study that is enrolling non-depressed people as well.
Who's that? Do we have any?
And these days, I don't know.
So the great thing about the chilled study is really it's a much broader population of people who can participate. You can be really depressed, you can be a little depressed, you can be not depressed.
That's hilarious.
As long as you still are meeting the other criteria. So there's obviously still some restrictions medically and otherwise to make sure that it's safe for everybody to participate. But in general, it's a broader population than.
And that's great because there's probably so many more beneficial factors to the hot, to the cold, like you said, aside from just depression.
Well, I heard that for women specifically, that if you're already stressed out or you have like high anxiety, that a cold plunge could be bad for you because it's like it can harm your heart or something like that. Or I don't know, there's something.
Oh, great.
Which for me, like I had an experience in a cold plunge where I was like, I mean, this was during a Tough Mudder like thing. So like there was a lot going on and I wasn't there for like health benefits, but like I had to like dive underneath a bar and literally like I went into like kind of like a
frozen
mode. It
was
kind of crazy. And then when it came out, like I was angry. Like I felt like just with this rage, like adrenaline rage, like just source through my body. And I was angry. I was like, how could they do this? Like, and everything else I was fine. Like I ran, I like was electrocuted, like, but that like, it made me so angry. And so like, I don't know why I had such like a negative reaction to being that cold. Yeah.
Yeah. And there is something called a cold shock response.
Yeah.
People oftentimes have this like transient increase in heart rate and blood pressure when they first get into cold water. So if you've ever had that sensation of jumping into like a cold lake and you kind of like gasp and it's hard to catch your breath.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that's exactly why we do medical screening beforehand because we wouldn't want anybody with a heart condition or another condition that would make it unsafe for them to do that, to be in that situation.
I know that you keep everybody safe and well watched and all of that good stuff. Within these 3 programs that you have, are they all taking place in the new building that has been? No. What is going on there? Is it an indoor roller skate rink?
I wish. So the Precourt Healing Center is our new inpatient psychiatric facility. So that's for people who need to stay overnight because they need a higher level of mental health care.
Okay, can we talk about that actually?
I'm probably not the best
You don't
person
know
to speak
about
to
it.
that since I
Okay.
don't work over there, but I'm happy to connect you with somebody who can.
Yeah, we'd like to bring somebody like that on because my questions are, do you admit yourself? Do you have to be admitted? What are the prerequisites or whatever for that? So I wasn't even sure if the building was Precourt. Is that after Amanda Precourt?
Yes, the Precourt family
They're
donated
amazing.
the funding to build that building, and so it's a really beautiful facility. It opened back in May, but I'm happy to connect you with some of the doctors over there because
You're
sure
the
they'd love to
best.
talk about it.
We should have somebody from there come on because number one, I'm glad it's open. You can't tell because it's tucked away, which is kind of nice, and it's probably more affordable than, let's say, having to go all the way up to that place that costs like $10,000 a minute or something
Yeah, it's
like
definitely
that.
great to have a resource like that in the
Yes.
community so that people don't have to go to Denver or wherever else.
Do they take insurance?
Yes.
Amazing.
But our research programs are entirely on the outpatient side for now. So if you've ever been to the Uyghurs Clinic, it's right above the new hospital. So kind of before you go down that ramp, we're in those buildings on the top where the Subway and the AT&T store used to be.
In Vail.
In Edwards.
Right
next to that new hospital you're talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys Vail Health just took over the entire space.
Yeah, you have to drive past us to get to the new hospital.
Right.
So when you see the new hospital, we're just like right in front. But,
Subway is still there?
no.
Oh, I was going to say.
So my office is actually where the Subway is.
Or does it smell like pickles?
Yeah, it smells like biscuit.
Couldn't get rid of that.
How do you get rid of that smell? I was wondering about that. No, that's great that Vail Health did take over. It took a while, but I guess, good things come to those who wait because now look at all of the wonderful things that you have going on there.
Totally.
How do people reach out again to take advantage of one of these programs or to learn more about all the other programs that you guys do?
Definitely, yeah. So Vail Health has a behavioral health website. It's just vailhealthbh.org. And on that page, you'll find information about all of our different service lines. So we have a page for research, which talks about the 2 different studies that I talked about that are ongoing. And if people want to participate in those studies, that's where they would go.
And when are you capping the participants?
So for the chilled study, we're hoping to enroll 100 depressed participants. And
I can snap my fingers and get them for you right now. Hold on. Hey, you. Come here.
and then I believe it's up to 60 healthy. And we've enrolled about 60 overall.
Gotcha.
So we'll be running for a while longer, probably at least another year or 2. And then for Optimize, we're hoping to enroll and treat 120 individuals with depression. And like I said, we're only at about 20 because we just started. And so
Right.
it'll probably be
And you'll
another
get there,
couple of
believe
years.
me. There are so many people that need to reach out for some reason or another.
Or to know about it and feel comfortable with the idea of taking
Now, what if somebody's depressed and they have been self-medicating? Do you accept them or do you make them go through some kind of, not withdrawal, but do they have to stop?
You mean like if they're using substances?
Yeah, because a lot of people don't know what to do, and they'll find something that makes them feel all happy, liquor or substances.
It always depends on the severity of their use. If their use is severe enough, we'll typically refer them to a clinical provider first before having them engage in research. The research studies can be pretty rigorous and intense for the participant to be a part of. We ask a lot of them. They have to do all sorts of surveys and assessments and come in for all sorts of visits. And so we always like to make sure that people are in a relatively stable place.
And in the right
participating.
frame of mind where you're ready. Usually when you're self-medicating, you're not ready for anything. You're just kind of just doing it and coasting. But when you know you're ready to finally stop the cycle, you just know it, don't you?
Yeah,
I
and
feel
the great news is that Vail Health Behavioral Health has a ton of other resources for people in that position. We have a really great intensive outpatient program for people who are struggling with those kinds of issues, as well as our outpatient psychiatrists and therapists, case managers, all of them.
Do you have something in Florida? It's called the Baker Act. If I know somebody that's struggling, do I have the right to bring them there and give them a 72-hour?
Typically, that's only if somebody's at significant risk to themselves. That would be like an involuntary psychiatric hold. But like I was saying earlier, I think if you have a friend you're concerned about, it's always good to just point them in the right direction, offer them some help navigating resources, getting them connected to help. The Your Hope Center crisis line is a great resource. They're 24/7.
There are so many different organizations here. You probably work with so many of the other non-for-profit organizations here, and you do you ever do any kind of fundraising or events to bring attention to, because behavioral health is on social media, and they always have things going on to make people feel not alone and stuff. I love that.
Yeah, and that's actually something my team was just talking about today, is how can we get out in the community more and spread the word and get more involved. So if you have ideas for us, we're more than happy to.
Jen and I love a good party.
Yes,
but we'll do
absolutely.
something like that. But also just being on this podcast today gives you the opportunity to talk to people that might not know anything about any of these studies and give them a little hope.
Yeah, and something I would say is really unique about our research program is that we're giving everybody an active treatment. That was one of the main goals when we first set out, is that we weren't going to do any studies where people are put in a placebo condition and then don't get a treatment.
Oh,
right?
that's mean.
So we're always taking treatments that we've seen to be effective in previous studies and then seeing if we can enhance them to make them more effective.
That's
so
awesome.
with the sauna, we're adding the cold plunge to see how that affects it. And with the psilocybin, we're adding this non-invasive nerve stimulation to see how that affects it.
I could see 2027 now, everybody in a chilled out hot tub. Everybody's all kumbaya. Everybody's healed. Everybody's healed. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing?
That'd be great, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know you're on your way, and I know that all the things that you guys do are just magical for people that don't think that they have a place to turn to. Do you have any extra questions for her?
I think maybe like, any words you can say that would combat the stigma of coming into a psilocybin study, especially for mental health. Because I think, some people might worry like, oh, like if my job found out, or if somebody found out, like, I might get in trouble, or, something like that. So like, what would you say to encourage people that like, this is,
It's got to
fully
be
legal,
private,
like like you're not like going to be in trouble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
I see what you're saying. People get nervous about something like that.
Yeah, the interesting thing about psilocybin is it's actually recently been legalized at the state level in Colorado to be administered in clinical settings.
Awesome.
So there's these things called healing centers that are popping up all over the state.
Kind of like dispensaries did when pot came legal.
Yeah, this is a little more regulated because people
good.
have to be with a licensed clinician who's been overseen by the state regulatory boards, and so people can become trained to become a licensed natural medicine facilitator, and so it's becoming much more available throughout the state for people to do this in a clinical and controlled setting in the way that ketamine has kind of really blown up in recent years.
Right. That is so intriguing.
and awesome. I think that's amazing.
I know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that if anything, to subside those fears, of actually partaking in something that is actually natural and healthy,
Right.
a healthier
it
way.
comes from nature.
Totally.
And I
Absolutely.
believe that anything that comes from nature could help us in one specific way or another, except for the poppy seeds. Poppies! Maybe they're not really meant for anything super great. I don't really know. But what I do know is that you have brought to light 3 different things that people can look towards feeling better and working on themselves, and some hope for the future, for maybe not feeling so down or depressed or blue or having so many issues that you don't think you have anywhere to turn because you do.
Yeah, especially if nothing's working.
Right. Yeah.
And my team is always happy to answer questions people have about the research.
Nice.
You can find our information online, and we have an email. It's just bhic@vailhealth.org.
Perfect.
And that's always a great place to reach out if you're looking for more information about these studies.
Well, Chloe, we can't thank you enough for being here and bringing to light so many great things. You too can get help and feel better about your life. And I really just think, what you guys are doing, and I know it's just the tip of it because I know that you're here. You're only here 3 years. I hope that I see you here for the next 25 at least, making things happen, changing people's lives, and just being somebody that we need in our community. So thank you very much.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Yay. It's Chloe Sorenson. I don't know why I just butchered her name so bad. It's Chloe Sorenson from Vail Health. And this was a wonderful conversation. If you're looking to look out for yourself, now you know where to go. We are the Chat Box, your mental health podcast here in Eagle County, coming to you from High Five Access Media. We're always here for you. Take care of yourselves and be well. Okay, we're done.